Welcome to the Abundiculture channel. The Bible provides pathways to abundance. God is pleased when we succeed abundantly and share generously. Abundiculture uses the family homestead as a platform to provide 5 basic needs: affordable housing, renewable energy, clean water, healthy food, and safe sanitation. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to check out our abundiculture.org website and download our free training manual. Today we'd like to share a tour of our off-grid homestead. This presentation was created by our friend Brian Morseman on his EcoTechnify YouTube channel. Check out EcoTechnify for great homesteading ideas.
Hey guys, this is Brian with the EcoTechnify channel. I'm here with my friend Jack Dody of abundiculture.org, and he's going to describe to us what he's got going on here in his high desert homestead in Colorado. So take it away, Jack. What do we got going on here?
Well, thanks for coming, Brian. We just thought we'd give you a little overview shot of our little house, and what we've done here is create an off-grid homestead. We started with a clean slate. This was just a field. There were no trees. There was nothing but a field.
So it looked just like this, right. All this out here to start out with.
And we have 35 acres here. And we started about 19 years ago building this. And so we'll take you inside and we'll show you how we built the structure. The nice thing was when you start with a clean palette like that, we don't have to worry about building codes out here where we're at. We should, but we don't. And because of that, we were able to do everything that we wanted to do. And that's basically what we did. So this is unique in that you won't find very many places around the United States where they've broken every law. And we just said, we're going to do this, and we're going to put all the pieces together and see how it works.
All right, let's go inside then. What do we got going on here, Jack?
This is a passive solar design. Very basic, and we get about 75% of our heat from the sun. This is all the glass you see is on the south side. We have a planter here where it helps us recycle all of our gray water from the bathtub and the bathroom sinks.
So how does the water does your gray water get to your garden here?
It's just piped directly underneath.
Okay.
So it goes right in. This is actually 32 inches deep here. And so the water just goes in and fills that area. And then I pump it, and I use most of it for outside in the front garden.
Okay. So underneath these fence slats, it's actually a covered garden bed.
Right.
And that's where the water soaks in.
And that's 32 feet long.
Okay.
And we'll show you the electric operation here. Now, keep in mind that this was developed about 19 years ago. So there's been about 4 or 5 generations of new gear. But the solar gear, even this stuff, is so good. This has worked flawlessly for 19 years. It's so reliable and so dependable, and the new stuff is much better. And the prices have actually gone down just a little. They've gone down a lot on solar panels. I paid $6 a watt after much shopping. Today you can get it for $1 a watt.
Wow.
That's a big deal.
Oh, so yeah.
If you're interested in solar at all, now is the time.
And you did this, even at $6 a watt, you still built this place on a shoestring budget, right?
Yeah, this whole system cost us about $5,600. That included the wind charger outside. We'll take a picture of that when we go back out. And there are 10 golf cart batteries in here, and all this stuff here. Now this over here is a new system that we added just a couple years ago. And there are 4 more golf cart batteries down below. So it was going to cost us $13,000 just to have poles set to get to this property. So
solar made a whole lot of sense here.
It made perfect sense for what we want to do. Plus the fact we were interested in that and we wanted to see what it was like. and we've been very pleased with the performance. Dependable electricity. Ours has never gone off in the whole time. Out here, there are usually 3 to 5 different days a year when the wind blows the lines down and people sit in the dark.
Oh, yeah.
So just real briefly, the photovoltaic panels are on top. This is a small system, about 1 kilowatt. And that red and black wire come down. This is the charge controller. Charge controller monitors what's going on in the batteries and what's going on in the system, and opens or closes and lets the current come through. The batteries are here, and then this changes it from 12 volt DC, which is the way it's wired in the batteries, to 110 AC. And so we have normal kind of appliances like microwave, we have computers.
So you're not walking around in hair shirts and
No.
yeah.
Never was the intention. The intention was to live well and simply and affordably. So that's the electric system, and I highly recommend it for anybody that's not on the grid. If you're not on the grid, this is a good way to go. If you're already on the grid, it probably doesn't make sense for you to try to get on the grid, because the expense is great and the payback would be 30 years. So that's something to think about.
Yeah.
So our walls here are 5 feet thick. They're made out of weed bales. Just the guys out here will chop the weeds down, make bales out of them, and use them for windbreaks and such.
So not like the Colorado weed
No, not those
situation.
kind of weed bale. No.
Just
No.
actual field weeds.
Yeah, just regular old weeds.
Okay.
And so we have super insulation on 3 sides of the house, and then the glass wall is on the south side.
Okay.
We do have, this is a propane refrigerator, and the reason we have that instead of the solar electric refrigerator is that the solar electric refrigerators were not available 19 years ago. Now they have mass produced, like the Sundancer product. I'm trying to think of the other name. Anyhow, you can get mass produced products that are about $1,000. They were $4,000. It was all a handmade deal, and there was a waiting list of, for about a year.
Oh, wow.
So that didn't make sense. So we just went with propane. The problem is that you have to pay for propane. It uses about 1 bottle a week, a little less than that. And it's not like having a modern refrigerator. It's slow to cool, but it's pretty effective. In our designs, we always put in a pantry built in. This pantry has 2 walls that are 5 feet thick, and then the other walls are all insulated. Just 2x4 walls, but it's all insulated. You'll notice a temperature difference. It's a little cooler.
Yeah, it's definitely cooler in here. And what's this floor made of here?
That's just old roofing tiles. They're concrete, and I wanted to have a little higher moisture in dry Colorado. Having a little bit more moisture coming through that soil underneath is a good thing to have when you're storing potatoes and things like that. So we put that where you don't have to climb down the stairs, you don't have to go outside. It's right next to the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere. Now we live 50 miles from the closest grocery store in Colorado Springs. So you're going to take a 100-mile trip every time you need to run to get anything. And so for that reason, you need a good-sized pantry.
Yeah, you can minimize your fuel usage.
Right.
Have a place to store extra food.
Now let's talk a little bit about how this passive solar works.
Sure.
Sun comes in and heats this tile floor, which is on top of 4 inches of concrete.
So we have a huge thermal mass in here storing solar energy. You got,
That's right.
Got a lot of that thermal inertia. Stays warm in the evening, right?
Yeah, it'll only drop about, temperature swing will be about as much as 7 degrees on a really cold night. But with a small swing like that, you don't feel drafts in here. It's a very comfortable space, and there are no fans moving air around, so there's no need for anything else. We do have a wood stove over here. You can take a picture of that, and we'll use that. We'll get about 25% of our heat from that. So it means I'm cutting somewhere between 1 and 3 cords a year, real cords.
Which is
4
pretty
by
good.
4 by 8 feet. Cube.
A real cord. Four ricks and a cord.
one guy, like an old guy like me, can make that much firewood comfortably. In a typical house of this size, you'd be cutting 12 to 15 cords.
So you're doing really well for the climate in the Colorado here.
And the solar, you've gone from 12 to 15 cords down to 1 to 3 cords.
Very doable.
Yeah, and that's real comfortable, and I enjoy that. I didn't enjoy cutting 15 cords a year.
Yeah.
That gets to be nothing but work. So the next thing is, this is where the rubber meets the road, man. You'll see that everything looks pretty normal, like a regular house. That was kind of our goal.
It does look like a normal house. You've got the paint and the lights and...
Yeah, we didn't want it to be weird. We just wanted it to function better than a normal house. So we have a pressurized system, just like you'd have any place else. This uses a recreational vehicle 12-volt DC pump. So it's a $200 pump as opposed to several $1,000s if I had a well. We collect our water on the roof. Our roof is actually just a little concave. Don't do that at home. That's a terrible idea. But that's the way we did this one. And then all the water goes into an indoor cistern that we have that we'll show you here in just a minute under our bed, which is, again, terrible idea. Don't do that. Just buy a tank, bury it outside, and you'll be great.
So if you could do the roof again, would you just make it like a shed roof or a gable?
A shed or a gable roof. In fact, I have another one that we did in the bunkhouse, and we'll show you how we did that one. Much simpler, much less likely to leak. This one, all flat roofs leak eventually, and we've already figured out it leaked, and we've figured out how to stop it, but why do that? So the main thing that really throws people is the composting toilet. So here's the composting toilet. It's as simple as it can be. All it is a 5-gallon bucket with a toilet seat.
No pre-prep here, guys. This is a real working bathroom.
This is the real deal. And here is the clean sawdust that we can put onto the toilet. Okay? When that 5-gallon bucket is full, it goes out to the compost pile, which we'll show you in just a little bit. This is part of a 5-point plan. If you go to my training manual, which is free, called Abundiculture, you can download it. And you see we have 5 points that we work on. Shelter, energy, food, water, and waste management. And what happens is all those things are intertwined in actual operation. So if I want to have clean water, I've got to do something with the sewage. And what we do is we compost everything. Then that compost, after a year of being composted, can be used for the garden. So we've killed 2 birds with 1 stone. We need the fertilizer, and we need to treat the sewage. So this is what we do, and most of our work has been done in the third world. So we're trying to help people who have absolutely nothing. Excuse me, and they've destroyed their soil. It's either been blown away or washed away. So they don't have 1,000 years to make an inch of topsoil. What they can do is what we do, which is plant in 100% compost, and we'll show you how that works. And if you want to come this way, we'll go in and we'll see the cistern. Okay, the cistern's right here. It's in the floor of our bedroom. It's basically it's 15 feet or 13 feet wide and about 13 by 13. When it's full, it's 4.5 feet deep. That's 4,000 gallons of water. Comes right off the roof into the cistern, and then I have it so I can divert it to an ag well, an ag cistern, which is outside. So I had a little design faux pas there, and we had a couple of little floods here. We opened the door and the water came over our shoes. That was not a good deal. So we figured out how we could control what came in. So now we design it so we control it. If this is full, it goes on to the ag well.
Got some rain out in the desert here. A little bit of hail too. Okay, I'm here with Jack, and it's good rain outside, and this is the cistern he's got under his bedroom. It's just coming down.
You're looking at almost 4,000 gallons of gas, of water right now. We're just topping it off.
Yeah. So the rain's coming down and it's being collected on the roof and coming down these. There's this 3-inch pipe. Yeah.
And then we divide it.
And then he just has to take the little stopper end out of the pipe on both ends there, and then it fills in his cistern.
That's so I can control it so that it won't overfill while I'm gone.
Yeah.
We had 2 floods here, and so after that, being the engineer genius that I am, said, you know, there might be something wrong with this. So
yeah,
we redesigned it so we can control this, and this go as an overflow goes out to another cistern on the outside.
Okay.
So when we close up those plugs, it simply sends the water to another cistern.
Wow.
Where I don't care if it overflows.
Oh, sure, yeah.
This, as I said to you, I would never put it underneath the house again. I would just buy a tank, put it out under the ground,
yeah,
and then I wouldn't have to worry about this.
Yeah.
It seemed like a good idea at the time. Like so many of my ideas.
Sure. Yeah, well, hey, if the state ever really gets draconian and clamps down on you, they'll only take that stuff away. You don't have to tell them about this.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they would love to.
Yeah.
Let's start with the compost pile. We just were in the bathroom where we have the sawdust toilet. That's what you saw. And what happens to that? Well, come on over here. We make our compost right here. Okay? This one's being filled up at this time. This one is what I call cooking. And it's real important that it has a whole year from the time I put the last bucket on top, that I don't use it because the pathogens that will make people sick will be active in there. But over time, God just kills all the bad guys. And so I have this little stick in here. It says I can use it after 5/18. So I put this in there on 5/17. And so it's not going to be used until that time. Now that's critical. If you try to rush this process, that's when you're going to get sick. Okay? And as long as you don't rush this process, we have never had anyone become ill as a result of eating. Now we don't sell anything, but our tomatoes have a reputation of being some of the best, and I kind of just don't have the heart to tell people why. So
tell them what you're growing them in.
Yeah, what we're growing them in.
Yeah.
And we grow everything that you're going to see from all the plants are grown in 100% compost. Our soil here is terrible. It's high in alkaline. It's very sandy. There's just not much to it. It's not worth trying to grow anything in.
Let's take a look at what's an example of what your soil looks like right now.
Okay.
The native soil.
Okay. Well, let's just look at the road here.
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, it's hard as a brick. Literally, I've had a guy with a large tractor try to plow this up, and you can't. It just bounces over the top. Anything that's had a little pressure on it, like this is a driveway, it just turns into concrete. It's there's just not much here for growing.
Yeah, very little organic matter. It's mostly sand.
Right. You're in the prairie here, so there's very little organic matter and almost no woody matter. And woody matter is important. The mycelium in there becomes important in the whole process of the exchange of nitrogen to the plants, making the nitrogen usable to the plants. So we add a lot of woody matter to the compost is in sawdust, so that's wood. And then we add leaves that have been shredded to the compost pile. We also add biochar or charcoal from the wood stove. We don't add ashes. We don't need any more alkaline in there. So we just add the charcoal to the compost, and that's about it. I don't turn it. I don't do anything. I put it in there. I let it sit for a year.
Okay.
God does all the work while I'm sleeping. I love that.
Yeah, and I notice there's also there's no odor out here.
Right.
Even with your compost pile that's in the process of being filled up, I don't smell any nasties out here.
Yeah, if you're doing it right, you're not going to smell anything. If there's an odor, usually what it means is it got too wet, and the oxygen, it's become an anaerobic process as opposed to an aerobic process. Not enough oxygen can get in. So what you simply do is you stir it up a little bit and add more woody material, more high carbon material, and that'll neutralize it and the odors will go down. That's happened to me once in 19 years.
Wow.
So it's amazing. It's a process that requires almost nothing from us except the intelligence to put it in a pile. I think most people can do that, but they won't.
Yeah.
If the Chinese did this, then they wouldn't have to worry about the yellow fever that they get, because they take their night soils, you know, all their feces, and put it right onto the crops. You need this step in between to kill those pathogens that cause disease. But the idea is correct. You need to be using human waste in order to rebuild the soils. When we go to the third world, we see that they just don't have any topsoil left. This is the only way they're going to make enough good soil so that they can feed their families.
So you're up here in the high desert, and that's very similar to a lot of what you see in the third world, especially the arid regions. And so you're leveraging the digestive processes of the human body to increase the fertility of your farming operation.
And they have to do that. Otherwise, they are going to starve. They're depending on us now. They're getting, you know, bags of grain and so forth, and that's what's keeping most of the third world alive. And that's a very bad plan. They need to be able to do this on their own, and they can do it on their own. The thing is, when you start talking culturally about these things, it's very difficult to convince somebody to change the way that they handle waste. Those are culturally very sensitive areas.
Lots
so
of
it's
taboos.
a tough slog.
Yeah.
But we're having success. In Kenya, for instance, we just got an article about, we introduced the composting toilet, Sawdust Toilet, there about 15 years ago. And now they're putting it on the boats that go out onto Lake Victoria so that they're not fouling the water even more.
Oh, yeah.
There. So it is catching on slowly.
Okay, starting to break some of that cultural taboo around human waste.
Right, and that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Well, let's take a look at some of, we plant
Yeah, let's do
everything
it.
in containers. People need to understand, and I tell my guys that I'm training that are going to Chad, if I can grow it, you can grow it. This is one of the hardest places on the planet to try to grow anything. It's too cold, it's too hot, it's too windy, the soil is terrible, the seasons are too short. So,
How long's your growing season up here?
well, basically, if you're just going to plant it in a normal fashion, you can't plant until June 1, and you've got until October 31st if you're lucky.
Wow.
That's it. So what we do is we plant everything in containers. So that protects them from the wind. We're planting in 100% compost, so we're able to amend the soils. For instance, these are peppers, and we've amended this soil for peppers. We have beans here, tomatoes here, and we've amended each one of these containers for that purpose. The main thing, though, these containers are SIP planters, sub-irrigated planters. And what you do, you'll see, oh, you need to come on this side. You'll see it's got a weep hole here on the side down at the bottom. When we put water in, we put it in this tube, and it goes to the bottom. In the bottom, we've used old plastic jars and so forth so that there's a place for the water to go. And we cover it all with a cloth so that the water can get in, but the soil doesn't fill everything in. So when we pour the water in through this tube, it fills up that reservoir underneath. And then the natural wicking process draws that water up into the plants. The roots themselves are doing the draw. And so it's perfect for growing things. The soil always stays just pleasantly moist, never wet. And that, it saves us somewhere between 50 and 75% on water right there.
Which is really important here, right? What's your average annual rainfall?
Well, we've been in a terrible drought for the last 19 years, so a lot of years I've had 9 inches of rain.
Wow.
A year. In some years I got up to 13 inches, and it was a huge difference.
Oh, up to 13 inches.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
9 inches is kind of what I shoot for.
Uh-huh.
That's just a tiny smidge over just a full-blown desert.
Wow. So just for reference, where I live in northeast Oklahoma, we average about 40 inches of rain per year. That's what you get generally around the Ozarks area in general, Missouri, Arkansas, northeast Oklahoma, stuff like that. So if his good year is 13 inches, that's really saying something about the limitations they have here on gardening.
So obviously water is one of our big issues. out here. And we don't have a well at all on this property. There's no well. We're catching all our water. It's water catchment on the roofs here. And we were talking about the flat roof. This roof is actually got as a shed roof, and you see the rain gutter on the back side. And that goes right down in here. And we're actually standing on top of here a 60-foot long agricultural cistern that I built with old tires. This is all in the training manual. It shows you how to do it and gives you step-by-step instructions.
Yeah, we'll have a link to that document in the descriptions of this video down below here.
Yeah. And it's all free. So we want you to take that. We want you to share it with your friends. We want you to actually use our experience. There's nothing in there that is just talking about how it might work. Everything that we put in there, we actually use, and it's time tested. We know that it really works.
So we're walking the walk here. We're not just blowing a bunch of hot air.
In the third world, they don't have time, they don't have money. It's got to work. It's got to work.
Yeah.
Let's show you a SIP planner here.
Okay.
The instructions for how to build these is in the training manual. It's called Abundiculture, because we believe in abundance, not just sustainability. This is called garden cloth. This is a wonderful product. The sun is so bright in Colorado that it'll actually burn tomatoes, and it'll make the lettuce and your salad plants bolt really quickly. So you shield the sun a little bit. This also keeps insects off and protects it from wind and the pounding of the rain. So it's a really great product that you can get at any good garden store. So here, this is a little screen I put in there to keep my cats. I cannot beat them. They get in here and mess it up before I even can get the lid on. So that's what that is. And this will show you this is 100% compost, and you can see it's got a lot of woody material in it.
Yeah.
We add horse manure to it as we do it too.
Okay.
So if you're going to use any kinds of manures, it's very critical that you make sure the people are using organic stuff, because the poisons that they're spraying, I see a little worm right here, and while I believe that everything has a place to live, it's not in my garden. So when you're going out to get your horse manure, your chicken manure, whatever, you have to make sure that they're not spraying their fields. It goes right through the animal, and it'll nuke your garden, literally. You'll have to completely just throw that soil away and start over again. It's complete, and it's killing. And what they're doing is they're spraying fields for broadleaf plants so you can have real clean hay, and then you buy the hay and you kill your garden. So you got to really be careful of that one. That's a new problem that we have. These bottles here are a wall of water that just moderates the temperature. It moderates it so that it won't freeze, when we get cold weather, but it also moderates it. Plants are a lot like people. They don't like to get too hot, most of them. My peppers are the exception. But tomatoes like to work from about 50 degrees to about 85 degrees. Moderating that temperature using water is really effective. So I found that not only is it really good for the winter, it's great for the summer too, because they look at this tomato plant. The strength of that plant is a beautiful thing. It's just firm. It's
standing up mostly on its own. It's got real thick. It's a very rigid tomato plant here.
Now that's in part because of the type of tomato plant that it is, but it is a healthy, wonderful looking plant. Yeah. And it's because it's been so hot this year, I've actually had to kind of cover them up a little bit too. But it's just now, today is July 21st or 22nd, and we're just now starting to really get some tomatoes on it. So it's going to be a race to see if we actually have a red tomato at the end that the deer can eat before I get out here. Whole beans and go vertical because we can get a whole lot more beans in a small space. Space becomes really important. One thing I want to encourage people, if you're new to gardening, you want to keep it small. Keep it small. Let it grow naturally. It's going to take you time to learn the ropes. And what most people do is they go out and they tear up a large plot. It gets covered with weeds. They're terribly discouraged. Gardening is no good. They give it up. If you start small, what you want to do is have a beautiful little garden and enjoy a small amount of food And then if you like it, next year you grow a little bit more and a little bit more. It's always a learning process. I've been growing things for a long time, but one of my favorite gardeners was Ruth Stout. Back in the 60s, she was one of the most popular gardeners in America.
She wrote the No Work Gardening book,
That's
right?
her. And she, in her 80s, well into her 80s, she gardened. And she always pointed out that no matter how many times she had grown it, if things didn't turn out just right, it was quite possible that she wouldn't get one tomato for the whole year or one carrot. And she never could figure out. So gardening is an art, and it's going to really challenge you every single year. The other planters that you saw, the SIP planters, were 55-gallon drums. That white color is called natural. It lets the sun come in, and it acts just like a greenhouse. You don't plant in the blue ones. The blue ones are great for holding water. All the blue barrels have water in them, and the reason you want the blue barrel is that the sun can't get through it, and you end up with crystal clear water all year. If I put it in the white one, I end up with algae growing in there. It's disgusting. The other thing we like to plant in is these shorter bins, and onions, carrots, lettuce, things like that. These are also SIP planters. Now I'm running into a problem with these. After a time, the bottom splits, and so it has to be a container to start with that holds water. And so we're having to modify these. We'll put a real heavy-duty plastic bag in there, and then we can hold the water in there. But right now, these are leaking onto the ground, which is costing us a little bit of water. But you're learning all the time with these. And we've been working with the SIP planters now for 6, maybe 7 years. And we've gone through all kinds of different configurations and attempts, and we're finding out the ones that seem to work the best. Give yourself time, be patient. It's gardening. It's an art. It's not a science. So what we've got here, of course, are carrots and onions. In Colorado, you don't have enough sun or heat to get an onion that's a big fat onion, but we get some pretty nice doggone carrots. These are nice, and they're going to be nice and sweet.
I can smell it from over here.
It's good. That's
yeah,
good.
lots of sugars in those carrots.
Yep. And again, we can kind of amend the soil for the carrots. Onions. When you're having your onions, this is called the shoulder here, and you want those shoulders exposed, so you be careful not to be covering them up. But this is about as big as they're going to get. What's going to start happening is they're going to start getting brown, and they won't be good for much. So we're going to cut those out of there. We do a lot of drying. It's a high dry climate. A lot of times we'll have relative humidities here of 7. So drying food is really easy in Colorado. And so I'll dry a lot of things. I'm going to dry some of these onions. I'm going to dry some of the carrots. And then when I cook, and I cook a lot of soups and stews and such, I can just throw the dried stuff in there. It reconstitutes in there. Now it's different. It has a different texture then, and the flavor is concentrated, so it kind of is wow to your mouth. You'll bite into it and you'll go, whoo, now that's a carrot. And so it really, but it makes cooking really simple. This is Socks. This is one of our security agents here. We don't have any mice.
He alerts you
rabbits.
to intruders.
Yeah, she is a security cat. And man, I know that a lot of people don't like to have cats because they are magnificent predators. And they do kill birds and little bunnies and cute things. But they kill a lot of stuff that would eat all of our garden. So they are actually working animals here on our little place. And we really depend on them. And we live in a house made out of weed bales in the middle of a field. So having cats to take care of all the rodent problems, we've never had a rodent problem as a result of those pussy cats.
So they're like a unconventional livestock here.
Yeah, a little unconventional.
Mm-hmm.
If I was going to do livestock, I'd do chickens because they're pretty easy to raise, and they're such an efficient animal in terms of the way that they use the food and all the products that you get out of them, the eggs and the meat and so forth that you can use. A lot of people are raising chickens out.
We're on our way to see the gray water system, and this is Jack's little mobile solar cart.
Yep.
He's got a panel, little solar panel there, and it's connected to a little reliable charge controller, and then you've got just a marine battery right here, so he can take this cart anywhere he wants to and power something off of 12 volts.
This, a lot of people that you hear talking now, solar's kind of getting a bad rap. People are saying, it's not worth anything, it's no good. Well, it's no good probably in the middle of New York City. Probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense there because your needs are so great. But out here, it's going to cost me $13,000 just to get the poles to this property. And I did my solar setup that's worked perfectly for almost 20 years. I did that solar setup for $5,600. So do the math. You know, sometimes solar is a wonderful choice, and it's really cheap right now because you can buy those solar panels for $1 a watt. Great time for solar. All right, so what we're going to show you here is what I call a dry well. This comes from the kitchen, and all the water out of the kitchen sinks comes into this. This is described on, I think I've got it on the website. If I don't, I'm going to get it put on there. I show you how you build this, all the details. But there's a 30-gallon barrel in the bottom here, and at the very top, about the top 4 inches, it's got holes around it. So if I don't get to actually pumping it out of there, then it just seeps into the ground like a cesspool would, and the soil is a good cleaner of that water. So, but this, I almost always will pump it out. I'll hook it right up here to my 12-volt supply here. I've got a little 12-volt submersible pump that I purchased at Harbor Freight for 22 bucks. And you're going to see it pumping water here. There you go. Now I'd hook that up to my hose. Can you see it there? I would hook that up to my hose, and I would water my trees and so forth with that. So again, every drop of water on this place is used twice. It's absolutely critical. If you were to tear down the walls, you would see that every 2x4, every 2x6 in this place was repurposed. Now again, we don't have code to worry about, so that was possible to do. Saved us a ton of money and allowed us, now we're debt free. We have a place that is working. Now we can't grow nearly enough food for all of our needs. And frankly, I'm glad that I don't have to do that. That'd be a really lot of work. But we grow a lot of food, and we're able to share it with our friends, and we're able to preserve a lot of it and do a lot of it here. It gives you a buffer as the society is swinging left and right, and money's worth a lot, and money's worth nothing, and the real estate goes up and the real estate collapses. Having a homestead like this is a buffer zone to that. Let that happen out there. We are taking care of ourselves here with God's help. And that's really what a homestead is about. Great place to raise kids, great place to homeschool kids. You spend time with them, get to know them, teach them the things that they need to know, so that you have a kid that we really want to emphasize to anybody who's doing their own little homestead. Think about beauty. It's important. God likes beauty. He designed a beautiful world. You want to have that in your place. It makes you feel better. It makes people driving down the road. You don't want them to drive down the road and say, oh my Lord, I wish they'd go someplace else. No, you want to have something that's attractive. It's important. It's the way God wants things to be. So my wife does this. We have two colors out here on the prairie, gray and grayer. So all this color, is just refreshing to our souls. And keep it really small and simple. You can always expand. If you start out small, it makes your job so much easier to start with. And then over time, you can expand it according to your needs and according to the ability that you have and the finances that you have.